Hey everybody, Bryan, Zane here, and I just wrapped up watching night one of WrestleMania 36. I was seriously thinking about just waiting until Sunday night to talk about both nights of WrestleMania and lump it all into one review, but I realized, no, this show is too big for one review. There's so much stuff going on night one, I have to talk about it right now. So without any further ado, let's just get into it. The show opens up with an address by Stephanie McMahon saying that this weekend's WrestleMania is going to be very different, quote, due to our current circumstances. We think a nice little montage of past versions of America the Beautiful. It's like chopped up with all these different performers over the years and everything. Then we get the opening hype package for the show, and I'm not sure how much of it had to be altered to reflect all the madness that happened, moving out of Tampa and whatnot, but it only makes sense because a show like this that has gone completely against what everyone expected just like 4 or 5 weeks ago, makes sense that this video would play up on that air of unpredictability, because it begins with the epic motif of the pirates and everything in the dark waters and the wrestlers in the outfits and whatnot. Then we get like a static record scratch or whatever, and you get this cheeky British announcer talking about, basically a lot of fourth wall breaking, a lot of winking and nodding about, oh, let's get to the epicness and all this stuff. And then like it plays through and you gotta get that blend of like the humor and the epicness. It goes back and forth. It is very different. And like I said, the opening package definitely plays up on kind of the vast chaos that has struck this show. And it's actually a really good opening package too. Rob Gronkowski is your host of WrestleMania and he opens up the show, but I don't quite understand the merch. The Gronk with the umlaut over the O. Is that Grunkmania or Grunkmania? Don't quite get that. Anyway, Mojo Rawley is there too. Women's Tag Team Championship match is your opener as the Kabuki Warriors defend against Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. And I love Kairi Sane's WrestleMania entrance attire for this one. Boy, you wish that the show were at Tampa next to the giant pirate ship, because she shows up with her pirate's hat once again, the giant like black and blue feather jacket. That was really glamorous there. Kabuki Warriors work over Nikki pretty extensively early on, but Nikki gets in as a house of fire. Then she gets a double stomp in the corner and the heels work over Alexa for a while. It's one of those two hot tag kind of matches. Nikki's all fired up for her hot tag. There's a big comeback, hits a twisting neckbreaker onto Asuka, but then an insane elbow from Kairi mid pinfall. Asuka with the Asuka lock on Cross, and tit for tat, Bliss hits the twisted Bliss onto both of them. Doomsday Device move to Nikki and she still kicks out. Nikki's able to persevere, hit the twisting neckbreaker onto Kairi, twisted Bliss by Alexa. The challengers win and become the tag champs yet again, the first two-time women's tag team champions under this current belt style. I give it 3 stars out of 5. Really good opening matchup. I think all 4 ladies really brought it here. I was impressed by Nikki's performance as she gets the beat down, and the comeback and everything was really impressive by her. I've said before in the past, how much I really loathed the team of Nikki and Alexa at the beginning and how I didn't understand their dynamic and how I thought, well, when's this heel turn by Alexa going to come and when is she going to be exposed and they're going to have their blow off and everything. That never happened and I never understood why, but seeing them as they've grown and progressed as a team, and here on this night they have like matching color scheme for their outfits and everything, and it's very cute and it works now. Again, I'd love to see more character work from them. I've always been an advocate for more skits and more behind the scenes stuff of them, like showing more of their dynamic. But this here was good. It was a good performance, and then regaining the tag team championships I thought was a nice way to kick off the show. Sami Zayn's backstage with the rest of the Artist Collective, and he scoffs at the idea of inevitability. People thought it was inevitable that Braun Strowman was going to destroy him at Elimination Chamber. That didn't happen. People think Daniel Bryan's going to mow through him at WrestleMania, and Sami says that's not going to happen. Our next match sees King Corbin taking on Elias, but Corbin shows up and he gets on the microphone at the beginning and says Elias is nowhere to be found on account of him getting killed last week on Smackdown. He wants the referee to make the 10 count so Corbin can win by forfeit, but out comes Elias, and his only real kind of battle damage from what happened last week was a bit of kinetic tape on his shoulder. Wow, lucky guy. He El Kabongs the King before the match begins. Basically a brawl early on once it starts. Corbin takes advantage, working the shoulder. Elias is able to turn it around, however. Corbin tries to win the match dirty, but the referee catches him. Then Elias rolls up Corbin while grabbing the tights, by the way, to steal the win. Oh, the irony. This is probably the weakest match of the bunch on night one, in my opinion. Is it me, or was Elias really underselling the severity that fall he took last week? Like, all he gets is a little bit of shoulder tape, doesn't sell anything else. I thought that was I expected him to show up a little bit beat up and worse for wear, but the fact he did that and he still won in the end, I thought that was a little wild. Poor Baron Corbin. His ultimate blind spot is the surprise roll-up, and that really struck again here on this night. Obviously, this feud seems like it's going to be continuing on, but after the big spot with the balcony knockoff from last week, How do you top that? Becky Lynch defends the Raw Women's Championship against Shayna Baszler. From main eventing WrestleMania 35 last year to being match number 3 at night 1 of an empty Performance Center Mania, you hate to see it. Becky rolls up to the venue in her custom semi-truck we've been seeing on and off TV for the last few weeks. That was apparently what they were going to have her roll out to with her big Mania entrance in Tampa, and I bet it was worth every penny. But that entrance jacket Becky is wearing is totally fire emoji in my opinion. The match begins with the two ladies throwing soup bones Cole. Becky puts up a fight and is able to take it to Shayna pretty early on here. Shayna keeps going for the Kirifuda clutch, but Becky is able to evade them at first. Fighting on the apron, Becky hits a rock bottom to Shayna, goes the top rope, but Baszler beals her off, gets the armbar locked in, but Becky is able to fight out of it. Later in the match, Baszler is able to slam Becky into the announce table, similar to what she did to her last week on Raw. The clutch is finally locked in, but Becky's able to roll up and pin Shayna while in the hold, wins the match in kind of an upset. Really didn't expect Becky to come out on top of this one, especially in a match as competitive as this one was. I gave it 2.5 stars. I thought it was okay. Not either of their best match, in my opinion. Like I said, really shocking to see Becky win. I was expecting a short match. I was expecting a title change, and we got neither of that. I was really surprised that it was so competitive. After all the dominance that we had seen from Shayna Baszler and how vicious she was, I don't think this is like, oh, she's getting buried. I don't think it was that bad, but it's just a big pivot from what we had been seeing in the build to this. I mean, it speaks to how they want to portray Becky Lynch as this badass fighter. The fact she was able to keep pace with Shayna for so long and make things competitive speaks to how they value her as a character and as a competitor, and I can respect that. But after all that time they spent making Shayna this, like, you know, Lady Brock Lesnar essentially, it was, I think, a bit too competitive of a match. And I don't think the wrong person won, per se, but I am definitely surprised that Becky walked away winning the match here. Intercontinental Championship match up next as Sami Zayn defends against Daniel Bryan. Bryan? Zayn? At WrestleMania? I'll take it. Quick, we need some bodies for the Yes chant. Bring Gronk and Mojo back on camera. You have Drew Gulak in Bryan's corner, Shinsuke and Cesaro in Sami's. Sami with a lot of stalling and evading early on here, just running from Bryan early on. Shinsuke and Cesaro keep obstructing Daniel, but Drew Goo fights back. Bryan finally gets his hands on Sami, gets him back in the ring, works over Sami, and gets a big-ass dive to the outside. Sami is able to fight back, hitting some chops, but they have little effect on our hero Bryan here. On the outside, Shinsuke and Cesaro are finally back from selling the attack Gulak on the outside. Daniel dives onto them. Bryan goes up top to Sami, but he eats a haluva kick in midair. Sami wins and retains. I give this one 3 stars out of 5. I thought it was a really good story here. The whole build was like, how is Sami Zayn going to possibly survive against the technical wizard Daniel Bryan? You know, the side characters of Drew Gulak and Shinsuke and Cesaro really played their roles perfectly in this thing, but it did not take away from the match. It really added to the story they were trying to tell, and the athleticism was there, the intensity was there, and it was a very entertaining matchup. And seeing Sami being this chicken shit heel early on and then kind of like getting cornered, but being able to hold his own, though, I think was still very impressive. And him winning the match here in his heelish way, still winning relatively clean, because the Cesaro and Shinsuke didn't actually attack Daniel Bryan. They were just distracting him. But the haluva kick and everything, Sami winning the way he did, I think it was perfectly on brand with his character. And so yeah, it worked for me. Very unique way for the Smackdown tag titles to be determined is a triple threat singles ladder match as John Morrison defended against Jimmy Uso and Kofi Kingston. Obviously, all 3 teams were supposed to be at full strength for this one, but before they filmed the match, The Miz fell ill and he had to be he's just not in the match. So triple threat singles it is. At least now I'll finally be able to tell which one's Jimmy Uso. Each guy grabs a ladder early on. There be some spills, and Jimmy seems to injure his leg on the fall right away, and it gets focused on for a lot of the match. Morrison and Jimmy working against each other for a while. In the corner, Morrison gets Jimmy on the ladder, does a flippity-floppity flu off the top rope, and JBL on commentary has the temerity to compare that to Mr. Perfect. Kofi with a springboard Hurricane Rana off the ladder. He places Jimmy on a ladder bridge on the outside. Then Morrison intercepts him with a tightrope walk across the ring into a Spanish fly. That was really impressive. We get a ladder structure in the middle of the ring. Jimmy throws Kofi face first into the ladder. Great trash talk by Jimmy afterward where he says, "Flatten your face like a pancake, boy!" Jimmy looks to do something wild, but Morrison gets up and dumps him off the ladder, and he falls out of frame. Kofi and Morrison are on the ladder fighting. Jimmy joins in. All 3 are back up on top of the ladders just like in the beginning. All three guys now have a hand on the titles that have been unclipped. They're fighting. Morrison's the first to get knocked off, and he falls on the ladder bridge, but he came down with the belts. Therefore, he wins the match, and Miz and Morrison retain by hook or by crook. I was a bit disappointed. I wanted to see all 6 guys involved in this matchup here, but with Miz out sick, they had to pick 2 other guys for this one. I think they picked the right 3 guys for this matchup. Really played all 3 of their strengths for something as wild as the ladder match. And the finish itself was also pretty exciting. It's time for the big grudge match as Kevin Owens takes on the Monday Night Messiah, Seth Rollins. And oh my lord, look at that robe Rollins is wearing to the ring. All he needs is a little Pope hat and the look is complete. The match begins with a lot of fighting between the two. They make their way to the apron. Rollins not only backdrops Kevin Owens onto it, he also hits him with a damn Falcon Arrow. Para dive to the outside by Rollins and some trash talking. Goes for a 3rd dive, but Kevin cuts him off. Seth goes for the stomp a couple of times, but KO hits a DDT after avoiding them. KO makes his comeback. Rollins throws some kicks and a buckle bomb his way, but Kevin is still able to hit the pop-up powerbomb, gets a 2 count. They make their way to the outside again. Rollins decks Owens in the face with the ring bell, and the match is over by disqualification. Or we think it's over at least, until Kevin gets on the microphone and calls out Seth saying, "That wasn't the act of a god, that was the act of a little bitch." Quick little drinking game here. If you take a shot every time somebody says bitch on night 1 of WrestleMania 36, you will be in the hospital. Anyway, Kevin wants a no DQ match to be restarted right then and there, and the match begins once again, and Seth is just pounding Kevin over and over again. Hits him with the stairs, hits him with a chair, but KO can't stop talking mess. Kevin hits back with the bell twice. Then Owen climbs the giant WrestleMania sign behind the announce table, and a big-ass elbow drop through the announce table. Look at the height of that jump. Some great grunts by Seth afterward.
Gasping for air. Kevin Owens in bad shape as well.
Back in the ring, Owens hits the stunner despite Seth's pleas, and he wins the match. 4 stars out of 5 for me on this one. One of my favorite matches on the night. I just love the story they tell here. The physicality, the jaw-jacking, it builds and builds and builds. There's that big letdown initially after the DQ finish, but then our spirits are lifted back up once they restart the match, and you see Kevin surpass those odds against him to finally do this big, giant dive off the Mania sign. He wanted his WrestleMania moment. He said he'd steal it from Seth Rollins. That's exactly what he did. This was a great match. Gronk and Mojo rally up in the balcony. I assume they've been there all night and have not moved from their place. R-Truth shows up though and is basically asking for a place to chill for a while because he can't hang out anywhere. He can't go to picnics, to cookouts, to church. Yeah, Truth, you and everyone else. Thanks for reminding us of these uncertain times we live in. Then Gronk hits Truth with one of the weakest forearms I've ever seen, and Truth sounds like a gunshot. Gronk goes to pin him, but all of a sudden Mojo shoves him off and pins Truth himself to regain the 24/7 championship. Oh boy, now we just need he and Riddick Moss to get back together and things will be back to normal once again. After that, Paul Heyman crashes Charlie Caruso's stand-up and says that tomorrow Drew McIntyre will be exposed as a bitch. He says that Brock Lesnar is unlike anyone else in the history of Earth or something like that. Something Heyman promo. In your semi-main event, Goldberg defends the Blue Universal Championship against Braun Strowman. Now Strowman, of course, was the last-minute replacement for Roman Reigns, who backed out of the match citing health concerns. And when I say last minute, I mean it too, because they literally did not make this official, the match change official, until Friday night on Smackdown, even though the whole world knew about it a week beforehand. And they did it in the laziest way possible too. Now I can understand to some extent they were handcuffed because it was already pre-taped. They couldn't bring Roman back to do something to justify him getting written off. But man, they didn't even acknowledge why he was out of the match. It was just pure laziness. Anyway, the match begins. Goldberg hits 3 consecutive spears on Strowman, but Braun kicks out. We get a 4th spear. Strowman recovers. It's 4 power slams in a row, one of which is the running variety, to win. It was spamming finishers over and over again. Typical new era Goldberg match. Strowman beats him and is the new Universal Champion. Finally, Braun Strowman is now Universe Man. I give it 3 stars out of 5, mostly because the right person won. I was very pleasantly surprised how this match turned out. Not the in-ring stuff so much. I expected that, but the outcome was what really shocked me. I did not expect Strowman to win this thing at all, given how he's been portrayed the last couple of months. But I think it was the right call. Right person won. He finally gets the big championship Championship here. Would have been nicer if he won it 2 years ago. I think that would have been more impactful, but nevertheless, Strowman is the champion now, probably setting some up for him and Roman Reigns down the line once, hopefully, God willing, things get back to normal with crowds and everything and the health scares died down. You get the feeling that Roman was going to win this one on WrestleMania, but of course plans change. And so yeah, Strowman winning as a replacement makes a lot of sense, and I think makes a lot of people happy. And finally, time for the main event of night one, the match everybody's talking about right now. It's the Boneyard Match as The Undertaker takes on AJ Styles. And unlike everything else you've seen so far on night one, this one is shot out in the field somewhere, not in the Performance Center. It takes place in a spooky graveyard at night. We see the hearse drive up. You hear the Undertaker's music. Some druids come out and they pull out the casket. It's only AJ Styles being a trollish dick, everyone. Biker Taker officially back, baby. He is rolling into the graveyard, ready to fight. I love his look here. By the way, it's never still officially announced just what the hell the rules of a Boneyard match are, but I think we'll figure it out as we go along. Son of a bitch. They're fighting on and around the hearse. AJ looking real worse for wear here, but dirt in the face followed by Dick Kick City has him on the advantage. Taker does recover though. He throws Styles into an open grave, but here come Gallows and Anderson who present their army of backlit druids. Taker fights off the druids. The OC beat him down, but he fights back. Styles hits Taker with a literal tombstone from behind and they tackle through a shed wall. AJ talking some cinematic trash. Taker throws up the single deuce. Styles with the shovel to the back, and now Taker falls into the grave. AJ gets into a nearby loader filled with dirt, but Taker done teleports behind him. Styles runs away, climbs to the top of the shed. We finally get Pyro here at Mania for the first time tonight, fighting all three members of the OC on the roof. Taker hucks Gallows off the roof, hits Anderson with the tombstone piledriver, and chokeslams Styles off the roof. Taker takes his time just toying with AJ at this point, and now Styles is like begging and pleading with Taker, you know, I'm sorry, please don't bury me. Please don't bury me. I love that line has so many different connotations in wrestling. And Taker is like, kind of lulls into a false sense of security. He's like, I'm not going to bury you, man. You put up a hell of a fight, kid. Psyche totally buries him. Big boot into the open grave. And then he turns on that dirt loader and dumps the dirt all over Styles. So Taker presumably wins this match by way of burying his opponent alive, which a lot of people speculated was the gimmick with the Boneyard match. Anyway, Taker gets on the motorcycle. We see the pyro again, the symbol showing up on the side of the shed. He does the fist in the air, rides off into the night. AJ Styles has one hand sticking out of the dirt. What an iconic shot this was. As we fade to black, Wrestlemania, baby. I give it 4.5 stars out of 5, and the only reason it doesn't get the full 5 treatment is because we don't find out who the unholy trinity is in this thing. But be that as it may, still, probably one of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time now, and that is not hyperbole. It's just so different simply because of the setting. It's unlike any other match you've seen at WrestleMania, and it's just done in this crazy cinematic style that I've really grown to love. It is very similar to the vibe in like the Final Deletion and the Broken Universe stuff and the Wyatt Compound stuff from the last couple of years. So if you don't like that kind of stuff in your wrestling, then you might not like this matchup. But if you do, and if you truly embrace just how batshit insane wrestling can be, and the fact that WWE embraced that as well, then this is just wall-to-wall fun and excitement and just, yeah, like fist pumping. This is so fun to watch. And it really plays to Taker's strengths as well. When you consider how many matches we've seen Taker in for the last couple of years that are really, you know, underperforming, disappointing, or scary at sometimes, looking at you versus Goldberg in Saudi Arabia, then this match really plays to his strengths and it really accentuates what he is good at. And Styles was good in this one too. He's not much of, you know, he's not really known for his brawling and everything. I think he's more, he's more over. He gets more fun stuff when he's bouncing off the ropes and stuff, but he didn't have to do that with this one because the story wasn't about his in-ring prowess. It was about his beef with The Undertaker, and it was about the thing with Michelle McCool, and it was just so fun. I had so much fun watching this. That's what wrestling should be. It should be fun. And Stephanie McMahon said the opening of the show, we want to create diversion for the fans in these uncertain times. This was it. This made me forget about all my troubles for 10 or 15 minutes or whatever. This was great. I want every Undertaker match after this to be a Boneyard match. It was the absolute best way to end night one. And if anything can come close to topping this on night two, it's got to be Bray Wyatt versus John Cena in the Funhouse match, right? Well, those are my thoughts about night 1 of WrestleMania 36. Now, I will not be giving a letter grade on this night. I'm going to wait until both nights have passed for me to give you my cumulative grade for WrestleMania 36. But I will say this, the show has so far exceeded my expectations. I was very rarely bored. I was often entertained. It has me really excited, just based on the strength of the last 3 matches alone, really excited for what night 2 will bring us. And yes, I know, having an empty Performance Center Mania is not ideal. In all seriousness, they probably should have postponed this thing. And I am very bummed right now that we are not in Tampa celebrating the Mania weekend festivities. I'm very bummed about that. But on the plus side, for the first time in 6 years, I was able to watch WrestleMania from the comfort of my home. And for the first time ever, I was able to watch at least some of it with my children, which was a pretty cool experience. They didn't give a shit, but I did. And it was just really cool just to see this thing and see how it plays out. I was very curious going in how Mania was going to be presented. And so far, they've not really disappointed me. So yeah, really excited for night 2. But let me know what you thought about night 1 of WrestleMania, especially the Boneyard match, in the comment section below, and I'll be back here in about 24 hours with my night 2 review of Mania 36. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.